Brought to you by concordiatheology.org, bringing you resources that support the vigorous life of the mind in service of the gospel of Christ.
Welcome to Lectionary Kickstart. We're sparking your thoughts for Sunday as you plan your sermon and teaching lesson. I'm your host and producer, Jessica Bordolo, here with Dr. David Schmidt and Dr. Peter Nafsker. They're both professors of homiletics here at Concordia Seminary, St. Louis. You can hear all about us in our introductory episode, but trust me, they are pretty good preachers. All right, let's get started. David, where are we in the church year?
It is the third Sunday of Lent, the time that the church sets aside for us to meditate on the Passion of Jesus and prepare ourselves for the celebration of Easter.
And what are the texts for this week, Peter?
The texts are taken from Ezekiel 33, 1 Corinthians 10, Luke 13, and Psalm 85.
As always, I ask each of you to tell me which text you would choose to preach about. To determine who goes first, the author of this week's psalm said that God turned from his hot anger. When you were a kid, what made your parents hot with anger?
Oh, any lie.
Okay, lying was okay.
Oh, lying was big. Oh, it was really big.
As it should be. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Peter?
I don't remember what would have caused it.
Why do you look happy when you're talking about your parents being angry?
Well, I picture my mom swatting us with one of those wooden spoons from the kitchen that never really hurt, but you'd have to act like it hurt because then you'd think that was kind of the end of it. And it was usually when poking at each other, or it's probably bickering among my siblings was the culprit.
She'd smack you with a spoon?
And then we'd wail, and it didn't really hurt.
It used to make my parents hopping mad when I would make faces at them.
I think I'm going to go with lying on that one. David, you win. You get to go first.
Okay, great. Okay, so I would go with Luke 13, the gospel reading. I think it seems strange, this discussion of suffering and justice of God, and then this parable joined together. And so I'm going to attempt to work with both sections of the text.
Well, that'll be interesting because sometimes, that's tricky sometimes when the lectionary gives you two separate things.
Right.
That, of course, Luke put them together.
I know, but you could focus on one of them.
Right.
But this time I'm going to actually try to focus on both of them. And the overarching metaphor for me is what happens whenever I use GPS. So whenever I use GPS, have you ever had it where it's like recalculating? Your destination is now 2 hours away, right? So I think of what I'd like to think about these two texts is that Jesus is encountering people who are going the wrong direction. And in each case, there's this moment where all of a sudden we hear recalculating, and Jesus changes things. He shifts things in the right direction. So there's both of the stories for me, both the event of the conversation with the people and then the event of the parable. Both of them are moments when Jesus is trying to recalculate so that people go back on the right direction. Jessica, if you could read verses 1 through 3.
There were some present at that very time who told him about the Galileans whose blood Pilate had mingled with their sacrifices. And he answered them, "Do you think that these Galileans were worse sinners than all the other Galileans because they suffered in this way? No, I tell you, but unless you repent, you will all likewise perish."
Okay, so we have a horrendous story, right? It sounds as if Pilate had slaughtered Galilean Jews who were making sacrifices in the temple, and their blood got mingled with it. And you would think that in response to a horrifying scene like that, these people are telling Jesus about it. Well, why would you tell Jesus about it? Well, you would think it would be something about where is God in all of this? What is happening? They are in worship. They're coming before God. They're obviously repentant of whatever it is because they're making sacrifices. They're following God's law, and they're the ones who are slaughtered. That would be one rational explanation as to why I would tell Jesus about this, is that I want to hear from him what's going on.
What do you say about that?
Right, what do you say about that? But then notice the response of Jesus, which is kind of like the GPS saying, you've made a wrong turn. Jessica, read verse 2 again.
And he answered them, "Do you think that these Galileans were worse sinners than all the other Galileans because they suffered in this way?"
See, that is really weird, right? So the reason they're telling Jesus this is because they think they're worse sinners, and that this is why that happened to them.
They deserved it.
They deserved it, right. And they deserved it, and I don't deserve it.
Yeah.
Right? That, I'm better than them. So this horrifying event has happened. And rather than ask, where was God in all of this, they're saying, we know where God was. These people were worse sinners than anybody else, and that's why it happened to them. And that's why it's not, the other one, the corollary is that's why it's not going to happen to me, because I'm not a sinner like that. Right? So this is where we need to recalculate, because your car has just made a wrong turn. You're judging the hearts of others that you cannot read.
And justifying yourself.
And you're justifying yourself before God, right, on the basis that you're not such a sinner. So this is a really, really hard wrong turn. And Jesus does the recalculating, and that's in verse 3.
"No, I tell you, but unless you repent, you will all likewise perish."
So what I like about that is, in effect, Jesus is saying, I don't want you talking to me about other people's sin. I want you talking to me about your sin. Right? I mean, the hard turn is, if you're going to talk about sin to God, talk about your sin to God. And so often I think we can get caught up in talking about other people's sins and not our own.
Because their sins are a lot worse.
Right.
It's so automatic, right? You just can't not go there. At least I can sometimes.
It's so tempting, right? It's so tempting because all the lights are here. That looks like a great place to go. I'm going to turn there. And it's like, no, that's the wrong way. Go down that dark road where you're going to be alone before God and thinking about your sin. That's the way to go. So recalculating, get off of that road where you're righteous and high and mighty and you can justify yourself before God and you can talk about everybody else's sin to God, but not your own. Come this way, the way of the cross, where you talk to God about your sin. So it's a beautiful, hard invitation of Jesus saying, I want to talk with you, but I don't want to talk with you about everyone else's sin. I want to talk with you about yours. That would be how I would read the first portion.
What that reminds me of, we talk in systematic theology about the difference between explanation and proclamation. And exclamation is talking about God, talking about his actions with others. Proclamation is first, second person, I'm talking to you, one-to-one kind of thing. And this is, I think what you're pointing out here is Jesus is saying, I'm not going to give you an explanation about those people. I want to talk to you about you.
Right. Let's talk, you and I. So then the other half, where there's
a long sermon.
Another recalculation, I know. So the second recalculation happens in the telling of this parable of the fig tree. And what I find happening is that as you listen to the parable of the fig tree, there's a focus upon the owner of the vineyard. That's the main character. A man had a fig tree planted in his vineyard. He came seeking fruit on it and found none. And it's this owner of the vineyard who I think is, kind of going to be like God, the Father. You have this owner of the vineyard who's coming to this tree and it's not producing fruit, and he wants to cut it down. He's, why should it waste? Why should it use up the ground? Why should it take the nutrients from everything else? Just cut it down. And then, so if we just have that portion of the story, we begin to think of God as this angry God who is upset about our lack of fruitfulness and who's going to judge us and cut us down. And then, surprisingly, all of the sudden, at the end of the parable, this other voice comes in, and we begin to see a whole different perspective. Jessica, if you could read verses 8 through 9.
And he answered him, Sir, let it alone this year also, until I dig around it and put on manure. Then if it should bear fruit next year, well and good, but if not, you can cut it down.
So all of a sudden, now we have this picture of Jesus who is interceding for the fruitless tree before God the Father. And so rather than have an angry judge who's going to cut us down, we have an advocate and an intercessor who is asking for more time, and who not only is asking for more time, but is going to care for us and tend for us so that we do produce fruit. And it's just I don't know, I think it's a beautiful change of direction, right? Recalculating that you were going down the road, that you've got this angry God, he's going to get rid of you, he's going to cut you down, and then all of a sudden you discover that the God who has come to be with you in Jesus Christ is an intercessor. And he's going to stand in your place and ask God for, more time for you. So he's interceding. So for me, the two teachings we learn in these two things are, number one, Jesus doesn't want to talk with us about other people's sin. He wants to talk to us about our sin. And the second thing we learn is that the one we're talking to is the one who intercedes for us.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about the recalculations. There's two different types of recalculation you're suggesting. One is recalculating the way we think about others. And
nice.
The other one is the way we think about God.
That'd be beautiful. Yeah. Right. Two ways to organize the sermon. He's recalculating how we think about others, and then he's recalculating how we think about God.
Yeah.
And both in relationship to us, right?
Right.
That he wants.
Yeah, for our own good.
Right. That Jesus wants to talk to you about your sin, and he wants to intercede for you.
Yeah, and that makes a nice, gives you an opportunity to proclaim law and gospel clearly in both of those.
Right.
Because the first one would really expose for the hearers ways in which we all want to talk about others more than ourselves. And the other one is kind of mistakenly thinking of God as this one who's so judgmental. That came up earlier. And he's one who is patient with us and cares
interceding
for us.
and caring for us. Right.
Great. Thank you, David. What about you, Peter?
I think I would preach on the epistle reading from 1 Corinthians chapter 10. Let me just start with, maybe, Jessica, would you read verse 13? That's kind of the verse that kind of captured my imagination.
No temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond your ability, but with the temptation he will also provide the way of escape, that you may be able to endure it.
All right, I'm reading this text, and I think to myself of an escape room. Have you guys ever been to an escape room?
Rooms.
They
are so fun.
What do you love about them?
Well, I love them because it's a cooperative endeavor, and it takes all different types of activities. You need logical thinkers. You need creative thinkers. I love escape rooms. I do.
What about you? Have you ever done one?
I've never done one.
Oh, man.
See, now, I don't like escape rooms.
You don't like them? Why not?
Because of that ominous clock that's ticking down.
Yeah.
And the pressure is on, and you got to think, and everyone's sitting there thinking, what do we do? What do we do? Where's the right button? Where's the key? To me, it was very stressful to be stuck, and then to think, maybe if you struggle with claustrophobia at all, maybe it's not a great game to play because, we're going to get locked in this space and never get out. But escape room, the concept, right? Even though you haven't done it,
Tell me
Jessica.
more.
So escape room is kind of this phenomenon. You see them kind of popping up all over the place where you pay for like this experience. You go with a group of 3, 4, 5 people, and you're locked into some room or some sort of space, and you have to decipher all sorts of clues and figure out puzzles to try to be led to the escape hatch, essentially. And there's all sorts of themes, and it's twisted how we put ourselves in these situations just to try to escape. But so I don't really love escape rooms because I don't like being trapped. Now, move away from the escape room for just a minute and think about situations in which you're stuck and you can't get out.
Right.
And you're trapped. I mean, I think about a dinner invitation that you don't really want to go to, and you're stuck. You gotta go. I'm thinking about a boring class.
Relationships that have gone sour that either they're still going to be your relative.
Yeah, or a toxic relationship with a significant other.
Yeah.
Or something. You think about being stuck in a dead-end job that you just are not satisfied with, or an unsafe neighborhood.
Or a body that's decaying.
Yeah. Right. So I wonder if you guys could think of a word that captures the sensation of being stuck or trapped. What word comes to mind?
Helpless, because there's nothing you can do.
Okay. I actually think it might be worthwhile in a sermon to ask people to think of what word comes to mind
When they're trapped.
when they're trapped. I think about confined. When I just play this game with myself, and I think, for some reason, I feel like dark,
Claustrophobic.
I would want to help people feel the confinement.
I like the helpless. I like that word. Yeah.
So that verse 13, then maybe would you read that one more time, Jessica?
No temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond your ability, but with the temptation he will also provide the way of escape, that you may be able to endure it.
Okay, so now Paul's talking about temptation as something that traps you. You're stuck in a temptation. You're confined. You're helpless. I mean, think about the temptations that you personally face that you almost sometimes feel helpless against, because you kind of know it's coming. I mean, we struggle with a lot of the same sins over and over again, and you kind of know it's coming, and you know something's gonna happen. It's gonna send you down this path, and you're gonna fall into temptation again, and you're gonna cave. And I think that temptation as being trapped, I think a lot of people could relate to, and feel very helpless and vulnerable. And so I kind of want to invite people to think about that and think about that condition, that situation, which would then lead me to another familiar passage of the Scriptures that I would use in a way that it's not always used. Okay. And so the passage that came to mind for me was John 14, verse 6, where Jesus says, I am the way and the truth and the life. And oftentimes I think when we refer to that passage, we think about the way, kind of the way to the Father.
Right.
Jesus, who comes through me, no way to the Father except through me. But I might kind of riff a little bit on that verse and think about Jesus as the way out. The way out of the entrapment and the confinement that we experience, not just in temptation, but of course, I mean, think of all the different ways Jesus is the way out. He's the way out of, the grave, of course, kind of biggest picture. He's the way out of sin and guilt and shame. He's the way out of despair and despondency and disgust. He's the way out of all that confines us, of all that sin does to trap us and to suffocate us. And so I think I'd want to highlight that kind of a freedom, confinement, captivity metaphor would probably be kind of the overarching approach here. You look back then at the verses in 1 Corinthians, and I thought it was also kind of interesting. Paul invites us to read the Old Testament in a certain way, especially beginning at verse 6 through 9 or 10, that he invites us to look at the Old Testament and these stories of examples that were written so that we could be instructed, and to notice how the people in the Old Testament in these various, desiring evil, idolatry, sexual immorality, putting Christ to the test, grumbling, these different sins in which the people of Israel were trapped. You could probably pick a couple of those or share some, kind of invite people to imagine, are any of these the kinds of sins that or temptations in which you were trapped? But then that would lead, of course, to that last verse where he provides this way of escape, this way out, and hopefully lead your people to be to look to Jesus as their escape key. If you want to go back to the escape room or something like that. A number of passages come to mind. I think about Psalm 50, verse 15, call upon me in the day of trouble. I will deliver you and you shall glorify me. I think about Hebrews chapter 2, because he himself was tempted. He's able to help those who are being tempted. So he's been trapped, and so he can help those who have also
See, and that's the thing I was just thinking about. I have never done an escape room twice, but imagine being in an escape room with Jesus who'd already been through it. I mean, he is the way out. He knows exactly what's going on with all of these puzzles and these clues and these pieces that we can't comprehend.
Yeah.
And so he's been through the escape room. He's risen from the dead. He's walked ahead of us, and he'll be there with us as we go through it.
Well, I think what I like about this and what I don't like about escape rooms is there's so much pressure on you, and you've got to be clever. You've got to figure it out. And I think sometimes we feel that as Christians, that we feel like it's up to us to overcome this temptation, and I've got to figure out a way else. I've got to get better. I've got to get rid of this thing in my life.
And Paul says right there that it's beyond your ability.
Yes.
Right? So it's not, overtaking you, God is faithful, he'll not let you be tempted beyond your ability. So there's this, this thing that's, we're unable to overcome this.
Yeah, and the way of escape, the one who is the way of escape,
right?
And that's Jesus. And so I would find a sermon like this comforting to help me deal with the temptations I fall into and to lead me to look to Jesus, who has overcome all of this.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter. We are in the middle of Lent, a really busy time for church workers. We know it's hard to take time for your own Lenten meditations. In order to support you, we've produced a free video series, Honest Repentance. It offers devotional sermons for each week of Lent. The sermons are written and preached by Dr. David Maxwell, professor of systematic theology here at Concordia Seminary, St. Louis. They are theologically rich. They're incredibly applicable. They've been used on campus as examples of excellent sermons. He preached them at my church. I thought they were incredible. People started calling him David Mic Drop Maxwell. You can find this free resource on our website, concordiatheology.org. You can find more episodes of Lectionary Kickstart and Tangible on any of the major podcast apps. If you'd like to see this show continue, subscribe for free, share, leave a review.
I'm your host and producer, Jessica Bordolo. Join us next week here at Lectionary Kickstart when Dr. David Schmidt and Dr. Peter Nafsker will spark your thoughts for next Sunday.
Recalculating.